Konnichiwa minasan, Marina desu. How y'all doing? So today is the 7th episode of Frill Talk, and I have another lovely guest with me. I have Sabrina with me. Hi, Sabrina.
Yay.
So Sabrina is a voice actress, musician, and a music school teacher living in Osaka, Japan. So Sabrina, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, pretty much what you said. I do acting and music, and I work as a music teacher at a private Catholic school with an international program here in Osaka. I've lived here about 9 years now. And before that, I lived in Scotland for 2 years and was born and raised in Colorado. And I've been into Lolita for ages. And living in Osaka is extremely dangerous for that. So
Oh wow. I think you've been wearing Lolita for about 16 years and Larm about 9 years. Is that correct?
yeah. I found out about Lolita. My nephew's graduating high school this weekend. It made me realize that I'm a million years old because I learned about Lolita my junior year of high school.
Oh wow.
And that was I met my nephew at my high school graduation when he was a few months old. So I'm like, wow, it's been over half my life. But I didn't realize that it was like a fashion anyone could wear, really. I thought it was just what a bunch of interesting musicians wore in Japan. And then when I came on my first trip to Japan in 2005, 2006, can't do math. That was my first trip to Japan. That was my first trip to Japan where I had money. And I went to check out Harajuku and discovered, hey, I can buy this stuff. So that's when I got into it. Although I was kind of a casual fan for a while because back in the early 2000s, the community was a little harder to find in-person sport. It was online. I brought back like my Gothic and Lolita Bibles from Japan and tried to make some of my own stuff. Tried. Did not succeed. And most of what I was buying was more Lolita reminiscent stuff. I could get some stuff from Japan, but a lot of what I was getting was like the more toned down Hot Topic dresses and things. So super Ida. And then when I finally did get involved in the Lolita community, aside from just kind of talking about it online, some of the people that I got involved with weren't very nice about it. There was a lot of subtle racism and subtle fat phobia in there. A lot of stuff like, if you just go out of the sun, you'd be so much paler and you'd look gorgeous in this. If you just lost a little weight, that dress would fit you so much better. And so I kind of felt like I couldn't really be a Lolita. And then when I went to Scotland, I didn't bring any of my stuff with me because I was in Scotland for a master's degree. I didn't think it would make sense to bring a lot of clothes with me when I knew I was only going to be staying for a couple of years. But when I moved to Japan, I could actually go into the shops and try the stuff on, see it in person, and started going, I miss doing this. And it would be nice to have dresses other than stuff from Closet Child and Bodyline. Let's start getting into this seriously now. Let's do this less for like convention tea parties and more like get into it, see what's out there. And I've been a serious Lolita since about 2012, and casually like curious, trying it out, not really succeeding, but like I would have considered my Ida face still Lolita, just very awkward. And thank God there's not many pictures.
Wow. So what styles do you primarily wear then, Sabrina?
I pretty much wear classic almost exclusively. I do some sweet, but I think I got into Lolita because I've always been into vintage fashion and like really girly dresses. My grandmother was a wealthy woman from Guatemala, and she kind of pushed all of her fashion onto me, and I was okay with this. But it meant I really got into lots of solids and floral prints and really poofy kind of like 1950, 60 Audrey Hepburn inspired stuff, which is who I'm named after. And so when I was into Lolita, I really gravitate more towards the classic stuff. I do like to do sweet. I just feel like since I got into Lolita almost in my 30s and now I'm 36, I kind of feel like doing over the top sweet feels a little kind of posery to me. Like it's cute. I like trying it, but it's not a primary style I like to. I prefer just doing more cutesy sweet stuff like country Lolita or casual sweet things. But most of the time I'm kind of elegant and classic aristocrat kind of style. Ooh. Except for today, where it's country because it is really hot out.
Yes, and it's very fitting summer. So you say you are a voice actress and musician. So how did you get into that?
The voice acting it's a bit of a long story, but I'll do my best. I always wanted to be a performer. When I was a little girl, I think I had in my head for some reason, you couldn't be an actor unless you were a singer, and you couldn't be a singer unless you were an actor. And all I really wanted to do was sing. My parents like to tell everyone about me being 2 years old and standing up on a table in a restaurant and singing along with Hello Dolly when the piano player started playing. They took me to see my first musical when I was 3, and I sat through it and formed opinions. So they took me to see my second musical a few months later, and it was South Pacific, and I hated that. Fuck that shit. I'm done with that. But I always wanted to be on stage, and specifically doing musicals and being a singer-songwriter. And then I got interested in voice acting in high school during my mega weeb phase. And when you could actually talk to the voice actors at conventions, because there were only like a few hundred people there. And I got to be friends with a few now retired voice actors who said that I'd probably be pretty good at it if I wanted to give it a shot. And I thought, maybe it might be something to do on the side. Then about 7 years ago, when I moved, shortly after I moved here, I got really, really sick. I was diagnosed with a intractable chronic illness called idiopathic thrombocytopenic purpura, which a lot of people have instances of, but they just don't realize it. They're just like, oh, for some reason I'm bruising really easily. This cut won't stop bleeding. In my case, my platelets dropped to such dangerous levels that they were having to give me constant infusions of them because my immune system was just wiping out my platelets. And I nearly bled to death. And because it's chronic in my case, it kind of saps my energy a lot. Basically, it has nothing to do with anemia, but the symptoms come off as if I'm functionally anemic. So and then between that and the fact that there's no way to tell if my platelets are in the safe zone or the danger zone until they drop into the hospitalization zone. I'm not regularly cutting myself to see how long it takes for me to stop bleeding. I'm not intentionally trying to hurt myself to see where my platelets are at. And that's the only way to really tell is if you're injured, are your platelets low or are they at a normal level? Wow. So because of that, I have to be really careful with activity levels. I'm not allowed to do like outdoor exercise without someone else there because if my platelets are low and I fall down, I could bleed out really fast. And this is all it sounds very dramatic. For the most part, it's not that big of a thing, except that I'm tired all the time. But it also means that I kind of had to abandon the musical theater aspirations because I'm not in a healthy enough space for it. I could still do singer-songwriter stuff, but being like a world touring rock star is not going to happen. So I started thinking about, voice acting, I can still do that. I don't have to look fantastic. I can go into a voice acting session looking like crap. I can record from home if I feel horrible. And I'm good at voices. My students love it. My nephews love it. I'm decent at voices. So let's just go for it. And I had some friends still, the retired friends who were willing to help me out with getting stuff set up. And there's a lot of people in Japan who want to get into voice acting, shockingly, I know. So there's a bit of a little community here where we all kind of communicate with each other, get people in touch with different websites and resources. The music thing just kind of has always been there. Just always wanted to sing, always been writing songs. I have an album out. It's my website. It's in the middle of being updated, so hopefully soon it will be live and people can go on there. But you can look my music up on Bandcamp and stuff and hear some of my original songs. And I'm hoping to get my second album out maybe next year. It was going to be last year, but obviously some stuff happened.
Yeah, right. Oh, that's so exciting. So, do you have any like music inspired chords for like any of your songs that you've done or ever thought about doing?
Not for the songs, but the music inspired chords, yes.
Ooh.
You know how kind of everyone has the prints that they gravitate towards, and 90% of the time it's cats for some reason. But for me, my Lolita friends all know if they come across something that is related to music or birds, get it. Call me up. I have a pretty impressive collection of music prints at this point. I wear them to my recitals. I still take voice lessons just to keep my opera training intact. And also because that helps me get roles like performing at hotel parties and things, stepping in and doing the occasional work at Universal Studios, not performance stuff at USJ. It's mostly just me joining in on the mass recording sessions, things like that. And my voice studio has regular recitals, so I'll wear those to that. But I've got a ton of music themed prints and accessories. And I had never actually thought, because my solo stuff kind of had a persona that went with it, but that persona has kind of shifted and changed so much at this point. I probably could make some chords themed around some of the songs, especially the stuff that I'm thinking about putting on the new album. There's a song that I wrote that I still love called Sunny Days and Umbrellas, and it's the main reason I need to get this out. I need to record this song so people know what the heck I'm singing when I'm walking around humming it. And that would be a lot of fun because it's literally a song that just lists all the things that make me happy. And Lolita's in it. And I bet I can find different Lolita things that matched all the other stuff in the song. Like, here we go. Sunny Days and Umbrellas chord. Enjoy it.
That sounds amazing. Like, oh my goodness. I would love to see like a cover album and like you have like different like cover album like concepts and like for like each song like have like a chord dedicated to it. I feel like that would be so cool.
I have to do that now. I am going to do that. That'll be like my promotional thing. Every time I record a single, I'll be like, here's the photo. I can't really release them, it's just kind of on Spotify and stuff, but
Right.
like, look, here's the chord for this. I actually have recorded some songs for a couple of movies that are coming out here, independent movies done by other filmmakers in Japan. One called, I'll name drop it because he'll appreciate it, Matcha and Vanilla, and it's coming out fairly soon.
Ooh.
A Japanese foreign lesbian love story set around talking about, some of the challenges of navigating an intercontinental, interracial relationship with language barriers, and also in a country that is getting better about LGBTQIA rights, but there's still work to be done. And I got to record a few songs from it, and we shot a music video for one of them about a month and a half ago before things got really bad here again. And the director actually was going through my Instagram, picking out chords that I'd done and going, I want this one or this one or this one. Let's see how well they move because we want it to be windy and swishy. So the music video for that, I'm going to be in full on, like borderline OTT classic with the massive ascot style hat and everything, in the worst high heels to be walking around in gravel ever. Fantastic. It had better look good because
Yes.
I think I almost died several times.
Oh my god, that's crazy. So then I guess like kind of going into like social media and like Jfashion, would you say that there's like a different experience when using social media versus like the US and like Japan? Like this can range from like finding other Lolitas in Japan versus like finding other Lolitas in like the US, like in your local communities. Is that something that you ever like noticed any differences or similarities?
I've noticed some. Social media wasn't super here. Like Facebook and MySpace were around the last time I was really looking in the States, but and LiveJournal somehow was still a thing. But I did notice I have noticed a change. Like I finding local Lolitas was so much harder when I was in Colorado. And then now it's easier, but I've also noticed that it's very different than in Japan because like, well, for example, in Japan, the social media that's popular here is very different. They're really big on Twitter, and Instagram is really big for Lolitas. So that helps. It's really easy to organize stuff, but you kind of have to already know the people, if that makes any sense. Like I'll find Lolitas that I've met in person easily. And then they'll just post something on Twitter going, "Hey, so today I really want to go to Universal Studios. What's a day that we can all go to USJ and have a Lolita day at Universal Studios?" And just everyone will just start chiming in and going, "Yeah, it'll be great." And you'll watch the whole thing unfold in a Twitter thread. And if you didn't get to be involved and you just show up kind of and you're like, "Hey, nice to see you. Is it okay if I join? If not, okay, I'm gonna go do my own thing. But yay, I get to hang out with you guys. Cool." But it's surprisingly easy to find other Lolitas on there too. They don't use the hashtags as much, but because there's a lot more image sharing, other people will retweet the images, and of course on Instagram they'll get shared in stories and things. So you're not necessarily following someone because they're part of the group. You're following someone because that particular fashion you like. You know, I think I explained that badly, but hopefully it made sense.
I think it
And
does. Like I think
nice.
I feel like here at least like Facebook is definitely like where you see like for the meetups and stuff like that. So that's interesting. Like I don't think I've ever really like tried to plan anything like Lolita related on Twitter.
Yeah, there are meetup groups here, but they're mostly the foreign Lolitas that live here. Like I'm in the Kansai International Lolitas group because that's where I am. And everyone there, we're all pretty close. Even the people who have left, we're still in touch with them. We had our online ILD meet last summer, and there were people who had been in Kansai in the past, but either moved back home or moved to a different spot in Japan that were joining in and chatting. And all of those groups kind of coordinate with each other across Japan a bit too. So like when some of my friends left Osaka to move to Tokyo, we're like, okay, we're just going to put you in touch with the Tokyo International Lolitas group. But there is definitely a segregation between the Japanese Lolita community and the foreign Lolita community, because the foreign Lolita community is still doing, organizing big group meets. People join the group, introduce themselves, talk about what you're interested in kind of stuff, like they would in the West. Whereas all the Japanese Lolitas, it's a lot more kind of, "Oh, we've heard about you by reputation. Oh, we saw your pictures. We want to check things out." I had an interesting social media encounter about a year ago, I think, maybe a little over. Time has no meaning anymore. Where I'm friends with I guess she would be a fairly influential influencer and social media presence here in Osaka. And she does modeling, so she actually has a small Japanese fan club.
Oh wow.
People will come up to her and go, "Oh my gosh, it's you. Can we take your pictures together?" It's hilarious for me. It's probably awkward for her. I'm very sorry. But we would go to a lot of tea parties together so that we kind of have the buffer of, if things got really awkward, we could switch back to English with each other for just like a couple minutes and de-stress and then go back to Japanese. And I was going to Innocent World as another person was leaving. And I thought, as she was like, "Oh, she looks familiar." And then I thought I heard my name. But when I turned around, I was like, "Oh, it's just the lady who was leaving. And I don't actually know. Why would she know me? I'm not really a presence here. I'm just kind of that one foreigner that comes along with this other person to all the meets." So whatever. And then my friend retweets me going, hey, was this you? And this lady had posted on Twitter going, I was at Innocent World and I ran into the Lolita that I always see with this person. And I called her name, but maybe I was wrong because she didn't respond. And I was like, oh my gosh, I totally didn't mean to blank you. I did recognize you. Oh my gosh. And we ended up talking and connecting and hanging out a couple times individually because of that.
Wow.
But it's definitely different when I've gone back to the States and the UK. It's been really easy to just hop into the Facebook groups and go, hey, I'm going to be visiting, because my wife is from Scotland, so we go back to the UK quite a bit, or we used to. And it's great to be able to message and just hop on there and go, I would love to meet some people and dress up while I'm in the area who wants to do something. But that's not really how it works in Japan. I feel like the foreigners get to meet each other, but you don't get to immerse yourself in the Japanese community until you've actually run into someone and sought that person out. You know?
Have you had any like negative experiences or positive experiences, especially since being a foreigner in Japan?
It's mostly been positive experiences. I think like anyone in Lolita stands out, but it's a little bit more common here. So, walking around in Japan with other Lolitas, other Japanese Lolitas, you'll just kind of have people go, oh, so anyway. But my friends and I definitely, it's at the point where we practically have a drinking game anytime someone's like, oh, she looks like a doll, like, all right, take a mental shot, because we're walking in public here. No one actually has alcohol right now, but we're saving those shots up for later. Lots more people want to take your picture. They will ask the Japanese Lolitas. They do not ask the foreigners. They just assume. Sometimes they'll ask, but a lot of the times you'll just see you'll be posing with your friends for a street snap and you'll see other people just pulling out their cameras. No. Please ask. So the positive side is a lot of people comment on it, and it's usually flattering. I was finishing getting dressed in a bathroom one day because I was in my outfit, but I didn't want to put on my accessories till I arrived at my location. And this little 7-year-old girl with her mother are washing their hands, and as they're leaving, she just turns to her mom and is like, Suteki na Lolita-san. Like, oh, I'm the wonderful Lolita. I probably wouldn't have gotten that comment if I weren't obviously foreign too. But then on the minus side, people feel more entitled. There's a lot more, oh, we're just going to snap your picture without asking you. Oh, we're going to comment. We're going to interrupt your meal to ask you what you're wearing. Like, I got that a bit in the States, but they didn't just, like, the photos didn't happen. People didn't just pull out their camera and start taking pictures of you without asking. And at a lot of the parties and stuff, I'll admit I sometimes feel left out, not because anyone is not welcoming to me, but obviously people are shy about speaking English. And my Japanese is pretty advanced. I'm not amazing at kanji or keigo, but I'm about to take the N1 and, knock on fake wood here, hopefully pass that, assuming it doesn't get canceled next month. And I speak it and read it well enough to read through newspapers and government paperwork and things and be able to communicate pretty clearly on almost any subject. But unless you are like a famous foreign Lolita here, they kind of just assume that you don't want to speak Japanese. So like my friend that's fairly successful, she also does some modeling for indie brands. And because she does modeling, people want to talk to her because they're like, oh yeah, she clearly wants to be here. And, if you look at the model's name, her last name's Japanese, she must be married to a Japanese guy, and she is. But they only see me in my own posts. So I'm the friend, I'm the tonari no tomodachi, I'm the next to friend. And everyone just kind of assumes that we're here because we're tourists or just because we have a passing interest in Japan. So there's less of an attempt to include people. I'll start conversations in Japanese and they'll just, trail off at some point. So that's a little discouraging sometimes.
That's kind of interesting. Like one would think, oh hey, I'm dressed in a very, Japanese fashion, obviously, and I'm here at a Japanese event in Japan. Maybe I speak Japanese, like
Yeah,
you would,
yeah.
huh. That's so
Although
interesting.
Although to be fair, there is an issue in some cities with a lot of scalpers coming over.
Hmm.
So they generally won't show up at things like tea parties, so it doesn't make sense there. But at shop events, if I want to compliment someone on their outfit, sometimes I'll just get the blank, like, "You're speaking Japanese to me? Are you? Or was that English? I don't know. Thank you. I'm afraid to speak to you now" thing. And there are a lot of scalpers who come over who haven't learned the language, and they're mostly from nearby countries, and they'll just come over and to get the dresses and sell them to the other Asian markets. And they don't bother because they can just come over for like a weekend trip. So sometimes I can kind of get it, but at things like the tea parties, it doesn't really make sense, and it's just a little isolating.
Mhm.
And I do feel like the Japanese Lolitas don't quite get the "we're going to take pictures and comment on things" quite as much as the foreign Lolitas do. Even if it's positive attention, sometimes it's like, please just ask. If you ask, I will probably take a picture.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. So, since you've been wearing J fashion for a good chunk of your life, is there anything that comes to mind that is really different from, let's say, 10 years ago or even longer in Lolita or like general J fashion versus now and vice versa?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I've really noticed the cycles in Lolita in specific happening, because it seems like the last couple of years there's been a big kind of old school reminiscent boom, but there's also a second kind of OTT sweet revival starting to happen. And it's interesting to watch that happen because when I first got into Lolita, like, I have the first 6 issues of the Gothic Lolita Bible that were published the year and the previous year to when I visited Japan and bought them. So they weren't hard to find. And you look at the patterns in there, and in around like 2012 through 2016, everything in there would have been just slapped with an ETA label immediately. All the black and white, the massive lace monsters, which I loved. I thought they were fantastic. The Gobelin prints, so much of it, when the first sweet boom really happened, really went out of fashion, and now it's kind of coming back. Casual Lolita was such a no-no for a while, and now that's getting really big again. And when I first got to Japan was around when the OTT sweet boom was starting to die down. We're still getting a lot of sweet prints, but the mismatched shoes and two-tone wigs were starting to go out. The more decora Lolita was getting less fashionable. And now, like, for a few years, it's been a bit more kind of classic. But now that AP and Baby are releasing, like, Baby's going more towards the old school stuff, and AP and Meta are starting to go back towards prints while also having some more experimental stuff like Neon Star Diner and the Milkshake series and things. We're starting to get a lot more sweet stuff coming back again. A lot of people are looking at these more unique prints and revival prints and going, "Oh, this is super cute. Now how can I make that really over the top?" So the cycles are getting really obvious to me now when they happen. In other J fashion, it doesn't seem to cycle the same way. When I started doing LARM stuff when I came to Japan, because those were the stores that had the fashion that I wanted to wear, and also some of the only stores that fit me. So I got into it and I was like, "Oh, I like this. This is fun. This is gonna be my normie style. This is gonna be what I wear to work," kind of. And at the time, it was very big on kind of sepia toned pastels and more sort of classic girlish prints, I think. And now it's getting they're really big on big puffy stuff again. There's a lot of lots of furry things were big for a bit. A lot more, still very pastel, but more cool pastel colors got bigger, and a lot more like, let's have layer all the stuff on for a while. And now it's sort of shifting to almost sort of like girly sportswear nearly.
Oh,
Like not quite sportswear, but like lots of big chunky sneakers with ribbons.
Yeah.
And shorter skirts and dresses, but with more like fitted cutso style tops, you know? So it's interesting watching how drastically that's changed, because Larme was sort of like Lolita Light when I got here.
Right.
And Larme was like Lolita Light, and now it's much more of a distinct style. Plus, some of the Larme brands have started doing Lolita adjacent stuff too, like Axis Femme has their kawaii line, and Misako's modeling for them. Right. It's very clear what audience they're aiming for there.
Yeah.
So there have been changes. It's been interesting to watch them.
Wow. So do you have any like Jfashion eras that are like your favorite but might not be as popular now?
I really liked I get it's getting more popular, but like the 2006 era Lolita, when it was still more old school, but it was shifting into prints. I really liked that. You got mostly because I got a lot of music prints out of that era.
Oh yeah, that's true.
I loved how many music prints Meta and Innocent World, there we go, were putting out around that time. Also, I really liked this isn't really an era, but it's in old school, but I really miss the fully sheared bodices, you know?
Yeah.
Like when it went all the way around. I loved how those looked, and I loved how versatile.
You fit into those better.
Yeah, I have a few of those dresses. I've got an Innocent World, the Trump Rose JSK from I think 2000. I want to say 2002, but it might be 2006. I cannot remember off the top of my head right now. But that thing, like, it's got the plain skirt, the plain kind of bodice thing, and then the waist area is fully shirred. And I just stretched that thing like out to here. It's great. Wow. It's so huge and roomy, and I've got several like that, but especially from Baby. Yeah, there's a few really nice ones from Baby that I have. I miss that. I wish they'd come back to that. I also really like the kind of late 2010s classic stuff. That was like the really like structured bodices with floral prints. I really liked that. And AP doing their thing where they had a lot of sweet florals that were good for both sweet and classic. I loved that time. I got so much of my wardrobe from AP during that. I have so many flower prints from Angelic Pretty. And then it kind of stopped for a while and I was sad. But it's coming back, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of things. Well, a lot of things are coming back, and I guess like retro is in, and like chunky sneakers are back in, dad shoes. Like it's pretty interesting.
Rockabilly Lolita needs to be a thing. I would be all over that. So I'm so excited about Neon Star Diner and the Milkshake series and some of those. Those are just
Meta also released like a neon kind of like retro print. I think it's just called like neon. I forget what it's called, but it was really cute.
Yeah, it was so adorable. I wasn't able to get in on that. But it's like, oh, that's cute. I'm going to keep an eye out for that at Closet Child. The turnover for Meta stuff at Closet Child is pretty good. So.
Yeah, I was just getting that one, but I'm like, I didn't even wear Neon Star Diner yet. Let me hold my horse. Yeah. So then
I'm loving the retro Lolita. It's great.
Yeah, it's awesome. So I guess going back to like brand sizes, because we kind of talked about that. So one of the many reasons, unfortunately, that people don't get into Lolita is because of the sizing of the dresses. How do you feel about that? What's your opinion about that?
I think that the gatekeeping within the community regarding size issues with Lolita has gotten better. It's still an issue, unfortunately, which is why I avoid any comment threads on Ruffle Chat about that, like the plague, because it'll just like make me cry. But like I said, when I first got into Lolita, I got a lot of comments about my weight, and I was not super overweight then. I was definitely not small, but I was about a US 14. So not bad. And like definitely not anything dangerous. And I could still fit into most of the dresses, except for like Victorian Maiden and Mary Magdalene, because never in a million years. But the comments were there and they were very nasty. And in terms of the community, I think that's shifted a lot. I have everyone in the Kansai community has been like, they've never said anything about my weight. If I've commented on it, their response has been, how can we make you feel better? What is there anything we can do to make you feel better? I had a New Year's resolution a couple years back to try and stop with negative self-talk. Because, you know, internalized racism, internalized fat phobia, it gets to you, you know, and especially in Japan, where I'm constantly hearing from people, oh, do you have a baby in your tummy? You should take a seat on the bus. You need to take care of that baby. I'm like, thanks, guys. I really appreciate that. Or comments about, you know, oh, you look so tired all the time. I'm like, I'm Persian. I'm part Persian. This is just what my eyes look like. You have no idea how much eye makeup is on here right now. I have so much under eye makeup right now to look like I'm awake. Or comments about, oh, just make sure that you wear sunscreen when you go to Okinawa because you don't want to come back. You're a nice color now. You don't want to come back too dark. I'm like, no, I do. I look unhealthy right now. I've been indoors all winter. I'm part Hispanic and part Iranian. Let me look normal. But it gets to you. And I wanted to cut back on a lot of the negative self-talk. And the response of my friends in the Kansai Lolita community was, what are some things we can do to help you with that? Not, oh, let's give you diet advice. They're just like, oh, how can we help you? And I found that to be pretty true in the community. I wish the brands reflected this because AP was doing really well for a while. AP was doing really well with the larger size MTOs, the sized MTOs for a couple of years, the dresses that had tons of shirring on the back, mostly JSKs, but still, when the first time that I bought a dress at AP in Osaka was Berry Garden, and I went in, they had, you know, the regular JSK, the fully shirred JSK, and the partially shirred JSK. And I was kind of like, oh, I really want to wear this. It's beautiful. It's covered in strawberries. It's this shade of brown makes it look like chocolate. I love this. I don't know that it's going to fit me. And the shopkeepers were wonderful. They're like, well, the regular JSK and the OP probably won't fit you. Like, we can look up the measurements if you want to be sure. But now these two JSKs would fit you. Why don't you try them on? And it was just fine. They were just like, well, if you like this print, let's figure out which version of the print will fit you. And they kind of stopped doing that, which is really disappointing. And Baby, I love the stuff that Baby puts out, but so little of it fits me, and they don't seem to care. You know, they seem to be the only brand that doesn't care about their foreign clientele. Like, AP's at least trying to get the attention of the Chinese Lolitas and the Western Lolitas. Even if their primary clientele is Japan, Baby doesn't really seem to have that interest. And I could see how, given that they're one of the most recognizable brands, that it can be a real turnoff, especially if you're a new Lolita. I want to get my first Baby the Star Shine Bright dress. Why are they all so tiny? Why are none of these shirred? Why do I have to go back 20 years to find something that fits?
Yeah.
Innocent World was doing really well for a while, and I still love them. They're probably my favorite brand at this point, but the last few releases they've done have been very discouraging because I really want to get them, and they all have the exact same measurements. Every single dress maxes out at 76 centimeters at the waist. And my waist, on a good day, I can fit into 81. But if I'm completely honest about my measurements, and I will in the intro, because this is something that needs to be talked about, my waist is about 104 centimeters. I am not a tiny person. I am not huge, but I am definitely fat. And the fact that you can fit into some of this stuff, it's possible. It might not be super comfortable sometimes. You can fit, you can get things altered. I've altered a couple of pieces myself. If it's a small enough alteration, I put an elastic panel into the side of a skirt that didn't fit me anymore, so that matching elastic panels on the side, kind of like what you see on ankle boots that don't have any zippers or laces, you know. It looks cute. It makes it fit me. It keeps the shape. it's possible to wear it. And I think there's so much emphasis on, but if you alter it, then you're changing it. It's not Lolita anymore. And it's really negative because there are bigger people out there. I'm really glad that Meta's been actively pushing the plus size stuff.
Yeah.
And a lot of indie brands do too. This dress is by Dreaming Drop, who I think are based out of Nagoya. I came across them at an accessory event, Romantic a la Mode, that they have here every year. And when I went, they had a dress. It was beautiful. I was like, I'm a little worried this is holding it up against me. It might fit, but it looks just a touch tight. It might not stretch all the way. And they went, this is like the last one we've got of this dress in here. Do you just want us to alter it for you? We'll just make it bigger. That's fine. There's stuff on their site. If you go to their website, they have all the sizes listed and they have multiple sizes of almost everything. This is like massive.
Oh wow, that looks so comfy.
It's so comfortable. I have 3 of their dresses now and a couple of their blouses, and they are some of the most comfortable Lolita pieces that I own. And they tend to look really good too because they sort of have them, because they know that they're going to get people asking for custom sizing. They make stuff that should fit a variety of body types. I found that to be the case with a lot of the indie brands too. And I just wish, I think maybe some of it's Corona because a lot of the international market has gotten a lot smaller in the last year. So maybe they're not as interested in courting the international market anymore. But there was a period where it felt nice to go into Lolita stores and go, I'm bigger, but as long as I go to the right stores, they're going to be nice to me. They're going to have multiple styles of this print that might fit. And now they've kind of gone back a bit, and that makes me a little sad. I'm hoping that some of them will see how Meta's starting to pick up a bit more in terms of sales and maybe go, maybe we should do the same thing.
How do you feel about Chinese indie brands or Taobao brands? How they usually offer a lot of custom sizing, not just for bigger, but also to like for more petite Lolitas as well.
Yeah, because I've got the issue of I'm big and I'm also 5'1", so a lot of the larger sizes just swamp me. That's one of the issues I have with Innocent World right now is that they're trying to be more size inclusive, but they're trying to be more size inclusive of if you're tall and not necessarily in any other direction. So I can get stuff that fit. When they put out size stuff, I can get things that fit me, but I'll have to hem them or by like a good 3 or 4 inches to make them work. I really like that a lot of the Taobao brands and other indie brands do custom sizing. And I think the fact that the quality's increased a lot too. I got some dresses off of Taobao in 2013 or so that they came in and half of the jewels and applique things had just fallen off in transit. This was not worth $80, and that's saying something. But now the quality's gone up a lot more. The prints are a lot cuter. We're getting so many unique styles, and we get non-Chinese options too. Like I know that their quality has been iffy in the past, but in the last couple of years, Violet Fane's been freaking knocking it out of the park for me. I just keep buying their stuff up because it fits great, and the quality has really improved once she got the popularity and the money to start looking at different types of fabric and I don't know what the word is, the people that like make the dresses for you.
Oh, like the
factories? Whatever. I don't know. Factories is the wrong word, but
manufacturers?
Manufacturers, yeah. It's like working with different manufacturers and distribution companies and things. I think the fact that indie brands in Japan, they're still really rare. You don't get a lot of people wearing indie brands in Japan. The Japanese Lolitas pretty much are just brand and that's it. But I think the fact that there's not the same stigma against it anymore is really good because you can get new Lolitas and go, well, why don't you go check this thing out? This is a really similar one. I love the fact that you can get custom sizing because custom size stuff just feels good, you know?
Yeah.
You put it on and go, this is made for me. This is made to look good on me. This is going to look the same way on me as it does on the mannequin because they're making it specifically to do that for my body, and that feels great.
It does, yeah. Like me, I'm currently wearing Neon Star Diner, and I had it altered. And I remember when it came, I was like, "Oh my god, this looks big!" Like big as in not tiny. And I slipped it on and I was like, oh my God, that was like the easiest slip on of a dress ever. And I've had that experience with like meta dresses. I'm just like, why aren't y'all doing this?
Yeah. I am all over. Meta, I think, is specifically trying to tempt me with their most recent print that they're doing reservations for right now. Because I missed out on Little Bunny Strawberry at AP, and that was borderline. Like I said, I can fit until about an 80 centimeter dress if I don't mind it hurting a little bit, not like causing me actual pain, but I'm not going to eat anything.
Yeah, and honestly, that's such an issue because like I'm the same way. Like on a good day, I think like I can fit in like 89 or something like that. I think my waist is around 90, 98, 99. I don't remember off the top of my head. And my bust is around like 105. So like I can fit into brand if I squeeze. You know? And that's
won't be
such
comfy, but it'll work.
yeah, exactly. And that's such like a problem that not just in Lolita, but like in fashion overall, but like we make like our bodies like the mindset is that our bodies are gonna fit into the clothes. The clothes aren't there to fit me. And I think for me personally, that took like a couple of years of like just realizing like, oh wow, I'm really hating my body. Like, why am I doing that? And I just don't think many Lolitas like talk about like that potentially dangerous mindset.
Yeah, when you fixate too much on the measurements and try and force yourself into stuff that hurts, especially, it's clothes. They shouldn't hurt.
Yeah.
And they should make you feel good. Like I do have several pieces that I have to squeeze into, but when I put them on, I'm happy with how they look and I'm not in pain. I just, like I said, if I'm in a recital, I might not want to eat anything for risk of, popping a seam. But if I like how it looks and it doesn't feel that bad, then does it matter that, that this particular dress is saying, no, absolutely, you can't fit into this in a million years. Well, see? And you can always get stuff fit if it's something you love enough. That was what my plan with Little Bunny Strawberry was. If I put it on and it was just too tight, I was going to set it aside to get altered when I can ship stuff overseas again. Because they've got the big waist ties, and waist ties are nice, but like I don't care. Right. I don't need them. Right. People aren't generally looking at my butt. Well, I hope they're not generally looking at my butt. And I can just make it, the few centimeters bigger to make it fit. And then Meta comes out with their rabbit strawberry print this week, and I'm like, oh no. Oh no.
And it's gonna fit. It'll fit. It'll fit. Alterations. It'll fit.
It'll fit, and it's rabbits and strawberries. And if there's any other thing that you can guarantee with me aside from music prints and bird prints, it's rabbits and strawberries. I will be all over.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've got strawberries on my earrings right now on the tea
set. So. Oh, I thought those were teacups because I saw the
they are. They're teacups with strawberries on them.
Oh, that's so cute. Oh, those are adorable.
Yeah, just got these in from an accessory and indie fashion brand on Etsy based in the Czech Republic, I want to say. It's Vivinari's fashion. I don't know, but they she offers custom sizing on her stuff too. So I'm probably going to be getting some skirts from her at some point.
Wow, that's crazy. So it's just so like saddening though that like newer Lolitas like a big reason that they won't wear Lolita or they're just too scared of wearing Lolita is because they're too fat for it.
Yeah, it's sad. Like my wife, she's not really a Lolita, but she wears it sometimes because she's like, oh, it's cute. She's got one meta dress that's covered in dogs, and she's like, yes, this is my favorite dress ever, because that's the sort of person she is. But she's also said several times, I just couldn't, even though that dress is really pretty, I know I couldn't fit it because she's quite busty, and boob loaf is an issue in normal clothes for him. Just check out the stuff that'll actually fit. Just give it a try, give it. Don't let that scare you off. I think it doesn't help either that the internet's memory is so long, because you go and you look up stuff about Lolita fashion before you learn to start asking people. And of course, you're going to see all this stuff from 10, 20 years ago, and they're like, oh, you must be this size. You need to make sure that you eat very small amount. You have to be of this particular body type, and you'll get thin Lolitas with big boobs, or small Lolitas like me who fit into the top's fine, but my waist and my hips are just, and would be like, oh, well, I can never achieve that. I can't look like a Japanese person. I don't have that type of body type. I shouldn't be able to wear this at all. Or should you? I think the main reason I actually got into Lolita fashion was I met someone my first trip to Japan. I was 18 years old, and it was my graduation present from high school. Because my grandmother, since my grandparents on my dad's side were both immigrants, they really firmly believed that their grandkids and children should travel as much as possible. So one of their promises was if we did really well in school, then when we graduated, we get a trip overseas. And I picked Japan because I knew my grandma could afford it. And my first or second night there, I went to karaoke, not realizing that it wasn't like a karaoke bar. It was individual rooms. I thought you just walk in and sing karaoke in front of everyone like you do in the States. And so I got there, I was so disappointed. And the guy there was like, well, there's this one room back here. They're just kind of letting in anyone if you want to go hang out with them. And I met some friends friends of mine who were really big into alt fashion, and you could tell, you could really tell. And one of them worked part-time making stuff for Bodyline. And he kept saying how someday he really wanted to go into designing his own clothing line, especially for Lolita and Gothic stuff, because he thought it would just look so much better on Westerners, because you look at pictures of historical fashion from Europe and the Americas, and he's like, that's the sort of shape I want. That would look, and Japanese people can't do that. Sabrina, if I ever get a brand off the ground, you're going to be my model. He ended up going into something else entirely, but that was such a positive moment for me. And he helped me pick out my first dress when I came back. He's the one that told me, let's go to Harajuku, and helped me pick out my first dress way back in 2005, 2006, when I officially got into Lolita. And then to have other people go, well, that's not with the rules. Your body doesn't fit the rules. Your skin doesn't fit the rules. You don't fit the rules of what a Lolita should look like. It's so discouraging. And it's, even though it's gotten better, it's really sad that that old vitriol is still there. You can still find it. Even if for the most part people are getting better, the damage was so pervasive, and that's just really sad.
Yeah, and I guess like a question I have, and if you don't feel comfortable answering, that's fine. I'll cut this out. So as someone that is non-Japanese, so you are Mexican and Persian, is that correct?
Guatemalan Persian.
Guatemalan Persian, I'm sorry. Someone who is obviously is not Japanese or Asian, or at least East Asian, I mean. Has that ever, like, I guess, have you ever experienced any, not necessarily racism, but any prejudice, and while wearing Lolita and also being a plus size or a fat Lolita, has that ever like been like an issue for you at all, like during your time in Japan and or the US?
Yeah, it was, I would say that it was worse in the US, but it's been different. When I was in the US, the first community that I was in was very, like I said, very big in the, oh, well, you don't fit the right, you're not the right size for this. I got a lot of comments because of the intersection of races in my background. My dad likes to say I'm the universal color, depending on the season. So wintertime, I'm very white passing. And right now, because I haven't gone outside in months, I'm probably more on the white passing end. But like height of summer, there is no doubt. And around other white people, I stand out. You know, I've got the privilege of no one's going to see me driving by and go, oh, we need to pull her over. Look at that. But you put me in an audition setting and immediately I'll have that, you're too exotic to be the lead in West Side Story, but you're not the right kind of exotic to be one of the side people, you know? And in the Lolita community, that I was first in the States, I got a lot of comments about how if you just learn to use parasols, use more sunscreen, use a heavier SPF, because in the winter you look so lovely in these dresses. You just gotta, try and make an effort to not get that tan. Why not?
Yeah.
Why not? I don't want to catch fire in the sun. This is not something that is desirable to me. I like the fact that I turn a nice color out there. And it got to the point where I felt awkward in the summer. I would try to hide inside and underneath shadows and things. So it's like, no, I don't want people. It got worse initially when I was in Lolita than when I was just in normal fashion, because it's like, no, I want to be able to look cool in this like edgy Jfashion, and I don't look the right type. I'm not pale enough. Got lots of comments on my eyes, lots of comments on the fact that I couldn't follow the makeup tutorials that were online because they were all for pretty white girls.
Right.
And no one tells you how to cover up these things. No one tells you how to hide these. I had to get a drag queen to tell me how to hide my eye bags. Literally, I just figured out how to do this last summer. All the makeup tips I get pretty much come from drag queens at this point.
Yeah.
But I sent a message because there was a Persian drag queen on Drag Race. And I was just like, my heart just jumped out of my chest watching us. You look so much like the women that I grew up around. You look like, your face doesn't look like me, but your skin looks like me, your hair looks like me. This is amazing. And everyone's talking about how gorgeous you are. You're one of the fan favorites. But the real question, how did you hide those eye bags? And he sent a message back. It was like, this. Also, I shaved half my eyebrows. Well, that part I don't have to worry about. But I will take the other tips. It was really bad for a while in the States. Interestingly enough, I didn't get that in the UK. You'd think it would have been worse. But I felt less obvious in Scotland. And maybe because Scottish people, like, there's systemic racism, but there's not as much. I mean, there's obviously always going to be some, especially in post-Brexit world, but most people in Scotland, and I hope most of the UK, seem to just be like, yeah, no, you're here. We've got a lot of immigrants. We colonized a lot of the world. We brought a lot of people back with us. What's up? Wear what you want, look how you want. In Japan, I haven't experienced any overt comments on my weight or my appearance in the Lolita communities here. And like I said, the foreign Lolita community is amazingly supportive here. Probably because we all get that same level of sort of exotification. Oh, you're not from here and you're so pretty. We are entitled to you. So people are more understanding. But I have noticed that I am the only one of my friends that attends any of the tea parties that has not won a Best Dressed award at any point. Not within our community, but within the Japanese community. So the brand tea parties. Any brand event I've gone to, I have never gotten any sort of recognition or compliments on my outfit. People will be friendly. And if we're wearing the same print, everyone will be like, oh, yay, twins, let's get a photo together. But pretty much all of my friends here have gotten some kind of award or at least a one-time modeling offer from a thing. And I am the only not East Asian or white one of them. And I feel like I'm also the only one that is obviously plus sized. Another friend of mine is plus sized in Japan. She's a little plus sized in the West, but it's again, like size 14, 16 US kind of thing. You're big, but you're not huge. You should be able to find stuff that fit you in most stores, just not in Japan. But I'm the only one that is like universally plus size, And I feel like that it's very telling in that case.
More recent like publications of like AP and like any like Lolita magazines, you don't really see many plus size or fat people. You really don't.
Nope. It's especially like Meta really needs to get up on this. If they're going to be selling their intentionally plus size prints, they need to get on getting some plus size models in. But it is kind of discouraging in that sense. I have also had a lot more overt racist comments on me in general in Japan, and a lot more comments on my weight. But that doesn't happen as much in Lolita. It's that more subtle, like, oh, lovely, we're going to talk to you, we're going to be friendly to you. You're just not as pretty as the rest of us kind of sensation that I get,
Hmm.
Like, we're friendly, we want to talk to you, but none of the models or designers are going to think anything. You're just there. But I actually had a boss at one point tell me I was not allowed to tell any of his clients about my Iranian heritage because he said, oh, they're going to be worried about terrorism.
Oh.
Okay, but like, my family was mostly driven out of Iran in the 50s
Wow.
because we were very closely affiliated. We co-founded the party that Mahat Mossadegh ran that got overthrown in Operation Ajax. It's like, no, we're not. Like, complete opposite of terrorists here. Democratically elected people that you all got thrown out.
Jesus.
I've had a lot of comments about. I had my first job here, which I'm so glad that I'm not at anymore, used to make comments about how, well, you're taking a lot of time off. You insist on leaving fairly early from work if you don't have club activities. We know that, like, sleeping and siestas and relaxing are like a thing in your culture, but you gotta beat Japanese stuff here. I'm like,
Oh my God.
And any other Hispanic person I've talked to here has pretty much had a similar experience at least once. It's some of it is ignorance, like Japan legitimately doesn't understand why blackface is bad. But some of it also is like, guys, we tell you that this is not okay.
And at this point, like in 2021, like there
Yeah.
are plenty of Black Lives Matter protests in Japan.
Yeah.
Like, come on. Like,
Yeah.
that excuse now is kind of getting a little bit dry.
It doesn't make any sense. They had a cartoon on the NHK last summer, I think, about the Black Lives Matter protests. And if you can stand to look at it, it's bad. You can still find it, but it was, really bad caricatures. Everyone looked like they were either in a gang or came from something from the 1920s minstrel shows. They made it about, basically, we're mad that we're poor. We want to be able to we're upset about this. I'm like, you guys completely missed the issue. And the complaints that flooded the NHK were huge. And most young Japanese people are aware of this stuff, but they don't want to. The establishment doesn't want to change. People, in response to the Black Lives Matter protests in Japan, a lot of people were commenting about how, but that's not an issue in Japan. We're like, really? A policeman brutally beat a man of Middle Eastern descent who had done nothing wrong. I've had very few of my Black friends in Japan have stayed. And some of the racism that they've been hit with is horrible. I won't get into it because it could be very triggering, but like, one person in particular was compared to an animal by his students. And when he complained to the principal about this, the principal went, well, we don't know any better. Well, you should educate them. No, that's not an issue in Japan. You're probably the only Black person they're ever going to see. And that's why he's the only Black person they're ever going to see. Gosh, I wonder why he quit his job 3 months into his contract and left. Cannot imagine. Yeah. It's weird that it doesn't happen as much when I'm in Lolita, but it does happen. And it is something that I'm glad, again, the younger people in Japan seem very aware that these attitudes are wrong, which is a huge relief. I've had everyone will ask you, if you're a foreigner, where are you from? Because they don't know. And I've had several people go, oh, you're from America, but you're not white. And I'm like, well, no, my family isn't from America. Also, there's lots of not white people in America. Oh, yeah, that's true. Wow, so your family came from these countries. That's so interesting. We don't get stuff like that here in Japan. We want to hear more. And that's always encouraging to hear about, especially when I'm in Lolita and people are like, is that why you're dressing like this? Is this like a cultural costume? Like, no, this is a Japanese fashion and I'm interested. Oh, okay, let's talk about that. How did you get into Japanese fashion? And do people ever dress like this in those countries? What's it like? They want to learn about other cultures, but the establishment doesn't want to welcome those other cultures. Mm-hmm. And I'm hoping that's going to change. Mm. Children are our future and all that.
Yeah. Oh man, have you ever like incorporated any like of your culture in like any coords at all?
A little bit. Since most of my stuff is classic, it can be tricky sometimes.
Right.
But last Halloween, we had our Halloween meetup at a friend's place, because she has the house that she lives in has this beautiful back garden with open air seating that's covered if it rains. So like, let's just have a very small group of like our close friends go and have a Halloween meet there, where we can stay nice and safe. We don't have to go through the house. We can access the bathroom from outside. We don't have to interact with anybody. It'll be great. And I didn't really have any Halloweeny things. I found some pictures of my grandmother from when she was a kid celebrating Dia de Muertos. And so I went on ahead and went, if I took Cinema Doll and paired this with some stuff that I got last time I was in Guatemala, like my shawls, I could make a really cool cord with this. And I had my wife do the face makeup for me. And that was great. I really wanted to do a coordinate for Nowruz, the Persian New Year. Doing a Persian themed cord is tricky because they're very big into different colors than you get in Lolita, and also busier prints. But there's been some paisley reminiscent stuff that Innocent World has put out, and some really nice jewel tones that are coming out in a lot of brands lately. So I wanted to put something together using the important colors for Nowruz. But both Nowruz's the last 2 years that has fallen through because it's been right when everything is hitting the fan. But I really want to do something with that. I've tried to do some Guatemalan themed coordinates, but for the most part, it just is sort of me basing it off of the fashion that I see people wearing, and not as much the cultural stuff. I want to do it more. I really do. I've never seen anyone do a Persian themed Lolita thing, so I'd really love to do something with that. Work in like some of the turquoise jewelry I have from Iran. Be like, check it out. Let's mix the pieces. I love it when you can mix something that is not Lolita with Lolita and create a look that is clearly Lolita but distinctly referencing something, especially when it's something historical or cultural. Like that kind of touchstone thing really is an interesting point of fashion for me, I think.
Right. Yeah, it just makes your coordinate that much more unique, especially since it's more of a unique cultural touch, like just more of a personal touch, really. Like I
Yeah.
hope more I personally have been thinking about it, about like kind of incorporating my Salvadoran and like Cuban roots like in a cord. That'll take a lot of time, but yeah, like
But it'd be fun. It'd be fun.
yeah, I bet it's probably just more like thinking about it than like just throwing on the dress and the blouse and whatever. So hopefully like sometime soon I'll start thinking more about that. So I guess you sort of answer this question, since a lot of people view Japan in rose tinted glasses, especially people who are anime enthusiasts. um so when people say Japan is a homogeneous country, as a non-Japanese person living in Japan, how do you feel when you hear that?
I feel frustrated because it is true, but it's changing so drastically and people don't realize it. When I first moved to Japan, I was living in a smaller prefecture called Okayama that's pretty much just known for being the home of Momotaro. Everything is Momotaro. It's a little scary, but also really fun. And I was in a very small countryside town where I taught at the biggest junior high school, which had about 250 students in it. And that was the biggest school in the entire area. Everything, so the other schools had like less than 100 students. My wife was teaching at an elementary school where there were 6 teachers and 5 students. It was very, very countryside. And even there, I had at least 1 or 2 mixed race students per year, like visibly not fully Japanese. We had students with family ties who would come back from the States and attend the school for like a year while they were staying there with family. And I have to translate their transcripts, which is great practice for Japanese. And that was in a very small town that like no one has heard of. Even in Japan, it's not very well known. And then I come to Osaka, and the school I'm at now, it does actively have an international program in it, to be fair. But at the elementary school in the international program, about half the kids are not Japanese, or at least not wholly Japanese. We have some students who are not technically citizens of Japan. That's one aspect of the homogenous culture that people do get right. You cannot become a citizen of Japan. You can be a permanent resident, but if you are not Japanese and born and raised in, like, if you are not Japanese, you can't be a citizen. I have a student who is Indian, and she was born and raised in Japan. Her family's lived here for years, but they've been stuck in India for the last year and a half because they're not citizens. So they're banned from entering the country right now. And it's, I mean, to be fair, they don't really want to leave their house right now in India, but there's so much more diversity here that is becoming a thing. There are a lot of people who are interested in other things. That a lot of the universities are getting more and more students who want to travel. I've had so many junior high and high school students that have said, we want to be flight attendants so we can meet people from other cultures. There is a real interest in globalization in Japan, and it is becoming more global. And the job opportunities for foreigners are going up too. Like, I came over as an English teacher on the JET program. I've worked at a university. I work at the music school now. I've done live performance. I've done translation work. There's voice acting. So there's so many opportunities outside of just tech and teaching that there didn't used to be. And because everyone has this idea of, well, Japan's just a homogenous culture, they don't want to explore that. And I think that does a disservice to the Japanese people and to the culture as well, because it is changing drastically. There are some big changes that are coming. I've said a lot of bad stuff about things here, but some of the stuff, the fact that, until recently, politicians could make statements like the foreigners are bringing corona in and everyone would agree, but now they'll say stuff like that, and you go on Twitter and look at the comments, and there'll be a mix of people there'll be the people who are like, yes, they should be staying in their own countries, not bringing corona here, but a lot of people going, that no one can come here on tourism right now, right? You guys are blaming the people who live here. That's not fair. You guys think that it's right that a lot of the foreigners can't leave the country right now and be guaranteed a return unless they're like married or have children here? That doesn't seem right. And a lot of Japanese people are the ones standing up for this. So I think it does a disservice because it doesn't acknowledge the change, and it also stops the change from happening, because as long as people both outside of Japan and in Japan are going, well, Japan is just, it's mostly Japanese people. Japan doesn't have foreigners. Japan doesn't have Black people. Japan doesn't have mixed race people. Then they're not going to think there's a reason to change either. So it's frustrating because it's not an incorrect view, but it's becoming incorrect. If you think that a culture is that homogenous, then shake things up, do what you can to change what people think about it.
Right. Which kind of, you just said shake things up, which kind of is why Lolita fashion exists.
Yep.
So a lot of people might not be aware, or if they have been watching Frill Talk, they might be aware that Lolita fashion, Jfashion, is counterculture.
Mm-hmm.
So when talking about Lolita, can you just tell the audience overall just how you feel, how counterculture and Jfashion kind of intertwine?
Mm-hmm. I think with the living in Japan perspective, it encourages you to stand out. So much of Japanese culture is about blending in, even going to concerts and things. Everyone learns the same dances. Everyone follows the instructions of the band on when to mosh, when to headbang. And so just to be yourself is so counterculture here. Just not being unashamed to show your interest and your passion for things without it necessarily being something that can easily be tucked away so that you can fit in with other stuff is a huge statement here. And I think that that's kind of the case worldwide. It's more obvious in Japan, but in the States, there's that pressure. You've got to fit into certain groups. You have to have a certain style to hang out with these types of friends. If you're a goth, you don't hang out with the theater kids or with the preppy kids or anything. But that's not what life is like. It's not at all what life is like. And even I'm sure even if you look back at your own high school times, you'll be like, well, yeah, I had my group, but there were other people that I hung out with too. But I guess, yeah, I mean, like the really popular kids weren't necessarily that different from me. So why not? Why fit yourself into the box? And why not make it obvious that you don't fit into the box? I think you wearing Lolita for me is a way to go. I love vintage fashion. I love costumes. I love being a pretty princess, damn it. Like what nothing wrong with that. I've always loved it and I'm always gonna love it. And I like bright colors. I like big statements. I like big accessories. And people can look at me and get that idea immediately. And that might make some people go, well, that's weird. Why can't you tone it down a bit? Can you do you have to have the petticoats? Yes, because that makes it look right for me. Someone else that doesn't need it. I do. Just deal. This is who I am. This is what I represent. And I don't have to fit into any sort of cultural box. This is definitely not something that anyone in Guatemala or Iran traditionally wore. But why not? Why not? If you people travel around the world, people are multi-ethnic, there's so many influences all informing each other worldwide and through various generations at this point. There shouldn't be Jfashion shouldn't be counterculture, because this should just be how everyone is at this point. You should just be able to dress and look however you like. And well, maybe not however you like, there's some boundaries, but if it's not hurting anyone, then it shouldn't be seen as that kind of this weird, edgy, brave statement. It should just be, oh, she's wearing those clothes, I can tell what sort of person she is. And that's cool.
Right. It's almost like, be able to take up space, because people sometimes feel like they shouldn't take up space. And with Lolita, obviously, you're physically taking up space, but also mentally and for some people, you are, taking up space. How do you feel about that?
I feel like when I am in Lolita and when I'm in the fashion that makes me feel best, not the fashion that is the most appropriate for this or that blends in the best with this sort of thing. When I'm in the fashion that makes me feel the most like me, I feel like I have a right to be here. Like I have some of my work clothes don't really fit me, like personality wise. They're just the only things I could get in Japan, that fit and were appropriate for the dress code at work. And I wear those and I go to work and I'm like, I know people are going to comment on my weight. I know people are going to comment on the fact that my waistline is the biggest part of me. I'm going to get pregnancy comments. I'm going to get those clothes look a little tight in area comments. I'm going to get people laughing at my butt when I bend over. And I'm so aware of that. But then I'll wear, I'll admit, I wear a Toma Nostalgia to work all the freaking time.
It's so cute.
It's so cute, and it's the elementary kids love it, the junior high kids love it. It makes the kids that don't want to speak English to me actually try and talk to me, and then they'll participate in music class, and that makes my job easier. And when I'll wear that to school with one of my nicer blouses that fits me, and I'll be like, see, now I don't care if people are looking at me. If they're looking at me, they're looking at me because of why I want them to look at me, not because they're going, but you stick out. You shouldn't be. They're looking at me because I choose to stick out, and this is what I deserve to stick out. I deserve to have something about me that people talk about. I deserve to be a presence and not trying to hide and not be here, even when people are taking photos without permission, I'm like, but you know what, you guys are acknowledging that I'm here and I am a person and you judge me worthy of existing, and I shouldn't need your judgment, but it's really nice to have that validation sometimes and it not just be in my head.
Yeah, I completely agree. So a lot of people who are in Jfashion, it seems to be kind of a common thing that when people use Jfashion or any sort of niche kind of thing, use it as an escape or as like to make themselves feel better. So talking more about mental health. So obviously this is just speculation, not no statistics, but a lot of people say that Jfashion makes them feel like their depression decreases. There's a lot of people in Jfashion have like some sort of mental illnesses, and they just feel like it helps them with that. How do you feel about that?
I think people with mental illness tend to feel like they stick out already. Even if it's not visible, you kind of feel like everyone knows, right? There's that like general you feel like, oh well, I'm so depressed and I don't have a reason for it, or I'm not comprehending what everyone else is comprehending, and it must be so obvious to everyone. So you already feel like you stand out. You probably gravitate more towards fashion that sort of emphasizes it. I think it's sort of a subconscious reclamation of that. If people are going to notice you, then you can choose why they notice you. And also maybe a way to let people know I'm not like you. There's something about me that is different. And visually, if you look at someone, you're like, oh, wow, why the heck are you dressed, in full on punk glory here? You're already kind of weird, aren't you? But then other people who are like, hey, you're kind of weird matches my kind of weird. Let's gravitate towards that. It just feels like it's a sort of subtle reclamation of your difference, and also a proclamation at the same time. I have a history with depression, and mental illness really runs in my family. All of the men in like my dad and both of my brothers have bipolar disorder. God only knows what some of the mental illnesses some of my relatives that didn't get out of Iran had that we'll never know about. It really runs in the family. PTSD, all this other stuff, it comes up. And I know that I always feel like if I'm going through a depressive spell, everyone knows. Everyone is noticing every tiny thing about me, even if they're not aware why. They're just going, oh, she's so sad. Oh, she's too quiet right now. Oh, she's being too talkative to make up for that. That's weird. People probably aren't noticing it, but when they do, that's like, yes, I knew it. I knew everyone knew that there was something wrong with me. And that doesn't feel good. But then if I'm the only person at school or work that's wearing, say, a bright red shirt, and everyone's like, oh, and everyone's looking at me, you can be like, well, maybe they're not looking at me because of a mental illness. Maybe they're looking at me because of this red shirt. I'm more okay with that. I'm more okay. And maybe they're seeing me. Maybe they're not seeing someone who's supposed to be normal being wrong. Maybe they're going, oh, that's a person in a red shirt, and that person in a red shirt has something about them that's different. And maybe we can ask about it. Maybe we can learn about it. Maybe it's not wrong. Maybe it's just different. That's kind of how I feel. Lolita's not necessarily a coping mechanism for me. It's just something I like to do because I'm like, yay, I feel pretty. I want to feel pretty today. Let's feel pretty. But it is nice to have that feeling like other people in Lolita might have similar feelings as well, not just similar interests and stuff, but maybe they've had similar experiences that have led them towards that. And I do think it's a very subconscious, if you're going to pay attention to me, you're going to pay attention to me the way I say you can pay attention to me, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And a way of kind of bringing back some pride and going, I'm not wrong, I'm just different, So I do think that there is something to the idea of counterculture fashion being tied in to neurodivergence. I do think that there's something to that, and I think it's just a subconscious thing that we all kind of go into.
Leaders that have like walkers, use wheelchairs as assistants, mobility aids, and dress in Jfashion Lolita. I just feel like it just helps them some way. Like maybe someone could do a study and find out why the way it is, but
yeah, I definitely think there's an overlap with the chronic illness in the Lolita community in specific, because there's that, especially if it's something that is obvious. Like mine's not obvious. Well, it can be, but thankfully right now it's not. But if you've got a walker or some sort of mobility aid, or if you have if you've got visible hearing aids or a visible vision concern, any number of things, if it's something that people can point at and go, oh, I see that, you don't get to ever see those people looking pretty or fashionable. So, and Lolita is seems to be surprisingly accepting of that. You don't see disabled models, but maybe because the clothes are so floofy and kind of attractive in a, I don't know, and kind of, even the really OTT sweet stuff is attractive in a very kind of classic, like anyone can make this work kind of way. I think it's a really good way to feel good about yourself. I know when I'm covered in bruises, when I have a really bad platelet crash, the first thing I do is go, I need to wear something where I get to wear cute socks, because I want to cover up the bruises, but I don't want to be obvious that I'm covering up the bruises. I want to have cute freaking socks. So everyone's looking at my socks and going, how adorable. I'm like, yay, you don't know that I have 6 bruises the size of my fist on my legs that make it look like I got run over by a train. I feel gorgeous and not sick.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Yeah. Wow. Wow. That's all I had to say. Honestly, this was great, Sabrina. So do you have any closing thoughts for the audience at all?
Just that I think there's a lot of Lolita has a reputation for being very gatekeepery, and life in Japan has a reputation for being kind of gatekeepery. And people need to know that it doesn't have to be like that. Things are changing. Things have changed so much in just like 16 years. Went from not just styles, but what is considered okay, what rules are okay to break, what rules exist, what sort of people you see, what sort of sizes you see, what life is like in Japan, what life is like in the US and the UK. And if Lolita and Jfashion makes you happy, then go for it. There should be no reason why people are like, well, but this sort of person doesn't wear that. Fat people don't wear this, Black people don't wear this, Hispanic people don't wear this. Why aren't you doing it? There should be no reason that you stop yourself from wearing something that you enjoy, because that's who you are, and you're not turning your back on your culture or trying to be somebody that you're not. If you wear something that people are like, that's not how it's supposed to look. There's no one way that it should look. Everyone is going to look different. And if it makes you feel good, go for it. And if traveling to Japan is something that worries you because you're worried that you're going to get there and be not thin enough or not white enough or not foreign enough, because I've had people say that I don't look foreign enough because my hair is similar to Japanese people, and from behind apparently I look close enough. I just look like an overweight Japanese person apparently. There's nothing that should stop you from coming here. Things are different here than they used to be. They're getting better drastically and very quickly. And if you want to come, if you want to travel somewhere else in the world, do it. Do what makes you happy, because there's so much out there that's such crap. And if wearing a pretty dress or traveling to another country and teaching English to kids while you get your anime weeb on is what makes you happy, then don't let anything else stop you. Just go for it.
Wow, thank you so much, Sabrina. That was great, and I hope the audience also enjoyed episode 7 of Frill Talk. So thank you again, Sabrina, for being on here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for getting in touch. It's been fun. I'm sorry that I had so many opinions with a capital O, but
No, it's okay. This is what it's for. This is what it's for. So thank you everyone again for watching Sabrina. So I will have all of her socials and everything in the description. So make sure to be on the lookout for her next album. Thank you everyone, and have a good night. Bye bye.